The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, the secret oath, and the secret proceedings.
Breaking humanity, one soul at a time. This is the World You Don't Know radio show with your host, Nick O'Connell.
Hello, and you're very welcome to this week's edition of The World You Don't Know with myself, Mick O'Connell, and I have a very good guest coming on tonight. It's a guy I've been meaning to get on for quite a long time now, since I actually met him last year down at the Open Minds conference, the Force conference, and my next guest will be appearing with his sidekick at the Open Minds conference in March. I think it's March 2nd, 3rd and 4th, if I'm not mistaken. We'll clarify that with himself now in a couple of moments. I have Gordo on, and he is one of the duo who are known online as Those Conspiracy Guys, and they're a comedy act who do what I do basically. They talk about conspiracy theories and stuff that the mainstream media won't talk about, but they have a little comedy slant on it, and they do a very, very successful podcast online, and they're in very high demand as well. They've been on numerous radio stations around the country, and they've spoken at quite a few conferences as well, and they're a brilliant bunch of lads. But I've got one of them coming on. I've got Gordo. Now, Gordo is the presenter, producer, editor and technical powerhouse behind Those Conspiracy Guys. He is a former comedian and a latter podcaster who also dabbles in writing, music, photography and filmmaking, and he can also dance, but not well or that often, from what I'm reading on his website. Anyway, I'm going to go straight to Gordon, because we've got an hour to do this show, including the ads, so we'll get a good 55 minutes with Gordon. Anyway, I'm going to go straight to him. Good evening, Gordon.
How are you getting on, mate? What's crack?
I'm great. Listen, thanks very much for coming on to the show.
Yeah, no worries, man.
That's brilliant. I don't know if you heard the intro there. I was just briefly talking about who you guys are and what it is that you do. Tell me, how did you get into all of this, and how did you manage to end up with an online podcast, and a very successful one at that?
Well, from your intro, it's just me on my own now at this stage.
Oh, is it?
And
right.
like Paul is taking a step back from the show.
Okay.
And I'll be the one going down to Open Minds, so I'll be flying solo.
Okay, all right. I'm sure you'll be well able for it.
That's what's happening these days.
Oh, right. I wasn't aware of that now. I've listened to a couple of your shows online now, and I was listening to one earlier on, the JFK show that you done, and the reason I listened to that one is because the very first show I ever did on this show, when I started it back in 2011, was I'd done a show about JFK, because of the Irish connection and whatnot, and I was listening to your one earlier on. You had some pretty wild theories on that show.
Yeah, the way the show started was kind of taking those bigger ones. I guess you've done a lot of them on your radio show already, and the JFK one in particular, when we flew through it, the way I was planning out the shows from the very start, it started off with me and Paul and Eamon O'Neill, and I had maybe 400 different topics that I wanted to talk about,
right?
Which is quite a lot, and JFK was obviously at the very, very top there,
I mean, we all grew up with, we would have, been exposed to stuff about UFOs and stuff like that. But when it came to a conspiracy that you could get your teeth into, I suppose JFK was probably the biggest one that I would have grown up with and known about.
That's the one that brought us out the term conspiracy theory in itself. That's the first time anyone looked at the agreed upon narrative of the world and went, no, that's not the thing. There's another thing. And the belief, like when the Warren Commission and stuff came out, between, like, we've all watched the JFK, the Oliver Stone movie, when you have it's not Harrison Ford,
Kevin Costner.
What's his name?
Kevin Costner.
Yeah. He's coming out, he has the stick and he's pointing it through and he's talking about a magic bullet and all this crack. Like, that's a load of me arse,
But in saying that, now I watched the Oliver Stone movie, and Oliver Stone, amongst the conspiracy movement online, the truth community, if you want to call it that, he's quite well respected. A lot of people look up to Oliver Stone and say, fair play to him, he's the one that puts it up to the establishment and, makes these off-the-cuff documentaries and stuff like that. But I can't help thinking, Oliver Stone is part of the Hollywood elite. You don't get to where he is in Hollywood unless you're part of that inner circle, I suppose, We know, as you well know, doing your own radio show, the kind of filth that comes out of Hollywood, even lately, the amount of crap that's coming out about Hollywood. You'd wonder, like, was the movie JFK, a deliberate attempt to steer people down a particular path.
Portraying a false narrative.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Do you think he might have been doing that?
I mean, that's like double indemnity. Like, that's like anything that ever was ever is lie. That's like saying everything that David Icke is saying online is known to be lies, and he's only doing it just because. I mean, why would anybody do anything ever? You know, you're questioning the integrity of reality there, which is a little bit. I mean, if you want to get deep conspiracy, yeah, of course, there's an alternative narrative to absolutely everything, and there's the way people explain it away is trying to make this like overarching, global cabal of scary white men in suits who may or may not be Jewish. It depends on where your prejudice lies. Who are controlling the world and all the events of the of the entire planet. Like, you have to look at facts, and if there are facts that support a theory, some people like to go, no, they're only put there because some guy, like, you can't say Oliver Stone put out like a fake narrative just because, The greatest conspiracy of all is if Lee Harvey Oswald was actually a lone gunman who was an amazing shot.
Well, that story in itself, as far as I'm concerned, is utter bullshit anyway.
Yeah.
That Lee Harvey Oswald acted on his own.
Yeah, but that's the thing, you see. Like, that's where the doubts set in, and it was at a time when, stuff was to go wrong in America. Like, I've done it news and the emotional weight people put on subjective facts to make themselves feel okay. They can choose, like, cherry pick little bits and pieces that kind of lend to positivity. If you're in America and you can't get a job, you're like, that's Donald Trump's fault. If you're and the government is acting the maggot, and you about it, you don't know anything about like National Health Services, or you don't know anything about like homeless statistics, or there's no real way to positively and practically affect those issues, right? But you can go out and protest against lads who are putting water meters on because they're there, and they're a clear and obvious quote unquote enemy. So you're like, oh, the lads in the yellow jackets, we'll go out there and we'll stand in front of the trucks and we'll stop them, and it gives somebody a sense of agency because they can actually do something, they can act on something, whereas to stop homelessness or drug addiction or the incarceration of young lads for minor drug offences that puts them in a prison system that would basically train them up to be like worse criminals or drug addicts. It's not a developmental environment. It's more of a kind of a punishment environment where I think people should be treated a bit better.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about that at a level. So you go out and you go, they're bleeding water. Because you can, because they're coming along in big.
But that was something. I mean, the water protests, as you say, was something that people could actually get their teeth into. I mean, I was on a couple of water protests.
Yeah, galvanised.
The amount of elderly people alone that were willing to get out and protest against water charges. I mean, it got the country off its feet, or onto its feet, should I say, and off its knees. But I don't think it went far enough. I mean, there's plenty of other. Corruption going on in this country. With the banking system and stuff like that, and people just. They never batted an eyelid about any of it. And they're still not batting an eyelid about it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, it's something that's beyond. That's why conspiracy theories are so popular, because you can take some awful thing, Like, it's much easier to think, for example, with Sandy Hook. It's much easier, to smoke a joint and look at a few articles online and go, yeah, it's like government mind control that's been going on since the 60s that, made this kid walk into the school and kill like 26, or it's an entire cover-up of a false flag practice drill for a mass shooting event that they wanted to portray as real so that they could push gun control onto an unsuspecting public, and there was never any kids and there was never any bullets and nobody got shot, and they made it all up. Like, that massive leap of logic is way easier to think. You know, you roll yourself up in bed at night and go, I can go and sleep now, rather than going some weirdo
but
and then walk down to the school that he used to go to and then shot a lot of people. Like, it's 50-50.
But isn't the problem though with these? Isn't the problem with these type of stories, like say Sandy Hook, as you just mentioned there, and the accusation that it's a false flag and it never happened the way the mainstream media said it happened? Isn't the problem though with these kind of events? No sooner have they happened that you've got some conspiracy theorists, for want of a better word, putting a video online, you know, presenting lots of facts, showing you lots of screenshots and stuff like that, and they make it look real. They make it look like it was a false flag. Do you get me?
But that's the thing. It's the facts. What are facts? Like, facts are, you know, non-subjective truths. You know. But now you're looking at it through a different perspective. You're looking at it through a different media, and how it's put together. Like, if you take your whole JFK, Oliver Stone is in on it, and he made a whole big thing out of it. Like, there's technologies out there now. I've seen some videos, Mick. I'm sure you've seen them yourself, where there's like facial mapping software.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
able to.
They can get George Bush to say anything he wants.
Yeah,
I've seen him. It's scary technology.
That's the next thing, and it's an almost consumer level technology. You can download that app and you have a camera and you put it on yourself and you run, if you have a powerful enough computer, and you run it through, and then you overlay it on top of a video of Vladimir Putin, you know, telling jokes about Donald Trump's small hands. Yeah. Like, anything is possible.
But isn't that the thing that with that
point where,
you know, with that technology, with that technology, how can you know it's real because you've seen it, and I've seen that technology myself. How can you trust anything you see on TV now? Anything?
But you see, that's the entire operation there. Like, to be able to make somebody not trust everything puts them in a really suggestible state. Do you know?
Yeah.
If you can't trust a fact, if there are so many, layers of deception between media that's been made, created, and distributed for a political purpose, or to change somebody's mind from one way or the other, like advertising. It's like, you didn't think you want to buy this thing, here's some reasons why you should go buy it, and you're like, okay, and you commit an action based on information that's been given to you fit for that purpose, right? So if you take a conspiracy theory and like, the reason those facts in conspiracy theories are so, some of them are so spurious and some of them are so undeniable that they can build that conspiracy theory around it. Like in every great lie, there's it's mostly truth, and then you just you add a little bit of sauce. So for even like JFK, there's so much fact that we can get from Zapruder, and that we can get from eyewitnesses. And there's that 80s TV show where they had all the people who were lining the roads, the babushka lady and the woman in the red coat, and they had all these people on, but you can't deny the amount of people that died around it, the Warren Commission's inability to explain all these things. Same with 9/11. There's so many facts leading towards that not being the way the 9/11 Commission described it in their report, right? So if you are willing to ignore facts because you think, but people are just saying that because, it makes it an awful lot easier to get in behind those facts, push the emotion, and make people believe whatever they feel is right. And that's where the world is moving now, is moving from objective facts and logic.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I feel that this is the right thing to do, and I'm going to trust my feelings despite everything I've ever been told. So those seeds of doubt that have now been lined. Fake news. Everything on TV, Mick, is a lie. It's an absolute lie, I have to say. It's fake news. And people are going, everything on the telly is fake, so I'm just going to go with my guts.
And that's the thing. People are looking at real news. People are looking at real news stories and picking off little pieces then and saying, that's fake. And
making their own narrative and creating their own subjective reality where they go, I feel that this is the truth, and they will operate on those feelings, ignoring facts because those facts emotionally, jar them. They're like, I don't believe that's true. But it's a fact, though. It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but where's it coming from? Who's saying that fact?
Yeah, people
and it's putting all this subjectivity onto, empirical information that it just makes for a really messy situation where nothing is real and everybody can be really easily emotionally manipulated because all you have to do is manipulate emotions, and they've been doing that for 100 years.
Yeah, I remember an ad campaign.
So they're really good at that.
I remember an ad campaign that ran, and I think it was back in 1989. I don't know if you're old. I don't know how old you are, but I don't know if you remember this. If you would have paid attention to it, but there was an ad running nationwide.
I was a TV kid, big time.
How old were you in 1989?
6.
So you wouldn't have paid any attention to this, right? Well, this is what happened, right? In 1989, there was an ad campaign ran around Ireland, okay, by the advertising companies, and there was these billboards started appearing all over the country saying Nostradamus spoke of February the 13th, and it was all these little hints about something that was going to happen in the future, and it was the talk of the whole country. Everybody was talking about it in workplaces and schools and within families and whatnot, and it was in the newspapers as well, and they were really riling it up. And then on February the 13th, these ads appeared all over Ireland, and all it said was advertising sells. And that's all it was.
Wow.
It was a brilliant ad campaign.
There, yeah.
But everybody was talking about it for months. Oh, it's going to be the end of the world on February the 13th. Even I thought the world was probably going to end on February the 13th. But then when I seen what they did on February the 13th, advertising sells, I thought to myself, how bloody gullible are we,
Well, the human condition, Mick, is a really delicate thing, and being able to know how to manipulate it, and then being able to have an agenda to be able to manipulate that into, like, all in themselves. And if you can put all of that together, you can make anybody do anything. We had a recent episode on the Heaven's Gate cult. You've probably heard of that, have you?
I've heard of it now, and I haven't. I had full intentions of listening to the show today about that. The show you've done, but it's 4.5 hours long, and I certainly didn't have the time to listen to it today. But I will as soon as possible. So tell me a little bit about Heaven's Gate cult. Who are they, and what was that all about?
Well, it's one of the most recent episodes we've done, right? The Heaven's Gate cult, right, was started by this guy called Marshall Applewhite and his missus, and in the 70s, right? And eventually they got this kind of commune together. There was a couple of hundred people that lived in a house in California, and he was, as the story goes, struggling with some like homosexual predilections that he didn't want to face up to, and he ended up getting a whole lot of people who were in a similar situation, or who were social outcasts, or who were, people who weren't accepted by their families and who felt ostracized. And all of these people all came together in this like sexless celibacy cult, where no one talked about their sexuality, and they were all just about like finding their chi in their center. And it was what was called a UFO cult. So they believed that at some point, just like they claimed that Jesus was an alien and was ascended into the sky from some tractor beam, full-bodied, that was going to happen to them. And then his wife died, and everyone went, wait a minute, she didn't get sucked up into a spaceship. What's going on here, Marshall? And then he was going, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, we all have to die, and then our spirits go into space, not our bodies. Oh, silly me. And they went to Mexico, and all the men got castrated, and to join in the whole kind of celibacy thing. They wanted to totally de-sex themselves. And then in 1997, they all ate a load of poison applesauce and lied down in a bunch of bunk beds in this house in California. And they all killed themselves because they believed that their spirits were going to leave their body and go onto a spaceship that was flying in the wake of the Hale-Bopp comet.
Isn't that what most Catholics believe anyway?
39 people to do.
Isn't that what the Catholic Church want their followers to believe? That, when they die, their spirit's going to go to heaven or something,
Not about the applesauce.
Well, I don't know about the applesauce.
It's pretty close, yeah.
But, it's a similar belief system when you think about it. They've rejigged it a little bit and said it was aliens and whatnot. But, the Catholic Church will...
Had a lot of stuff there from like Buddhism and from, Hindu religion and from Scientology and a little bit from the Baha'i faith.
Yeah. Even extreme
religions.
Islam, though, as you know, we're told that extreme Islam, you're told that if you blow yourself up and kill the infidels, you're going to go to heaven and there's 72 virgins up there waiting for you. That's...
A version of that, yeah, something like that.
It's crazy,
why does anybody do anything, But the whole point of me telling about the Heaven's Gate cult is that this guy was able to take people who were super emotionally vulnerable. They had lived a life that was full of, loneliness and ostracization. They were on the fringes of society. They were growing up in families in the 50s and 60s that were totally abhorrent to the homosexual lifestyle, and they felt that they couldn't come out. And they found this group that was a load of people together, and we're all like, yeah, cool, we can be cool here and be ourselves. And then it got a bit sour, and they were all in it. And there's videos even, Mick. You can watch these videos online, because one of the lads had a video camera. And what they did was they gave these 20-minute spiels, these suicide videos, suicide note videos, where they were just basically going like, I love Marshall and he's such a great guy and I can't wait to get into the spaceship. And it's like they're looking down the lens and using phrases like, and this is just something we have to do. I mean, we have to do it. And obviously he was a really good manipulator. He came from a family of like carnival people, these like David Blaine kind of, Shazam. Look at the card. Is this your card? Kind of people. And he was just good at manipulating people, and he ended up making them do all this stuff. So they came from a really vulnerable place into a place where they felt connected, collectivized. They were, happy to be with other people of their kind. And then their leader flipped the script and went, okay, what we're all about now is eating, barbiturates in applesauce and killing ourselves and going into space. And they're all like, oh, we've been in this a really long time. I suppose we just go along with it so Marshall doesn't get mad. It ends up being like, oh, sure, we'll just go along with it so we don't cause a fuss.
And how many people died in that Heaven's Gate cult?
39 people killed themselves. Do you know what I mean? In a house in California.
That's crazy, isn't it? It's nuts.
Just to you want to watch those videos if anyone out there is listening. I must have some of those videos, and they seem totally normal and happy. They're giggling, they're joyful to be getting ready to commit suicide, and there was nobody from the outside world in there kind of measuring the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's sad though, isn't it, that people will do that though?
It's really sad.
It is really sad.
But it goes to show you how, if you want to manipulate someone into doing
how easy it actually is. Yeah. Listen, I need to go to a quick ad break. Do you mind hanging on the wings for a couple of minutes?
Oh, no,
shouldn't be that long, folks. I need to go to a quick ad break, and I'll be back in 2 minutes with Gordy. Talk to you very shortly.
You're listening to Liffey Sound, www.liffeysoundfm.ie. Listen online. Community radio at its best.
Tune in every Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. for Ultrasounds on Liffey Sound 96.4 FM or www.liffeysoundfm.ie.
Have you taken our advice and explored the many attractions in our lovely Liffey Valley? There's so much to enjoy in the Liffey Valley. Lovely parks, riverside walks, historic houses, water sports, children's play areas and much, much more. The Liffey Valley Park Alliance continues its work for the preservation of this marvellous amenity and its picturesque landscapes. You can play your part by using its various facilities. If you have not already done so, start now. You won't regret it.
Danger, danger! If sore necks, ringing in your ears and mosh pits are your thing, check out High Voltage with me, Dave Darcy, for all things rock, metal and punk. Every Monday evening from 7 to 9 on Liffey Sound 96.4 FM.
Danger, danger! High voltage! We will tell us, and we will cheers.
Local programs, local presenters, local news. Tune to Liffey Sound 96.4 FM.
Now, folks, you're very welcome back. Gordon, you're still with me, aren't you?
I'm here,
That's grand. I think I called you Gordy before I left there. Apologies for that. It's Gordo, folks. Gordo.
You can call me anything you like, Mick, just not early in the morning.
But listen, I'm going to move away from what you were talking about there, about the Heaven's Gate cult, because I want to cover a few little topics with you, the kind of stuff that you're interested in. We'll move on to 9/11, and I'm not going to stay with 9/11 for too long, because you've covered it plenty of times in your show, and I've covered it numerous times on my show. But I just want to get your thoughts on 9/11. For me, it was an inside job. Well, that's just my belief. 3 buildings, 2 planes, the maths don't add up.
And the physics doesn't add up.
And the physics certainly don't add up.
There's a lot of fact. Yeah, there's a lot of fact there, and then there's a lot of extra theories. Now, what's happened with 9/11, because it is kind of like, the number one top conspiracy, it's the JFK of my generation.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's something we all saw, and it affected the world in a massive way. And since 9/11, in the first 4 or 5 years, there was loads of counterculture conspiracy theories being leveled at the George Bush and that kind of Republican administration, and the war then followed in Afghanistan and then in Iraq. Like, it was a kind of an obvious narrative line, the terrorists. Oh, we go get the terrorists. Oh, all right, sure, come on, we go over here then. There's a bit of oil over here, we might go get that. And it was just a whole kind of storyline that was allowed to play out. And Tony Blair is a war criminal, and everybody knows it. No one done anything about it. And the Dr. James Kelly or Dr. David Kelly,
allegedly committed suicide
in the UK, said there was no weapons of mass destruction, and then he ended up having some kind of a weird suicide. So much stuff down to the minute detail. There's movies like Loose Change, In Plain Sight.
Have you seen the one where it says there was no planes at all, that it was all CGI?
Well, this is the thing. Now, because it's come along so far and technology has been invented, that it makes those kind of claims like it's in the ubiquitous collective unconscious, right? So you can now say that the planes were holographic, or a woman called Judy Wood. I can't remember her second name.
Judy Wood. Where did the towers go?
Judy Wood.
Yeah, she wrote the book. Where did the towers go?
Like laser weapons.
Yeah, she said it was some sort of an energy weapon or something.
Yeah, it's a weather weapon,
Yeah.
Like, all of these kind of mad claims are coming out now. Madness, and where do you draw the line?
What do you think, Gordo? Gordo, what do you think happened on the day? What do you think? What's your own opinion?
From
do you accept the official story?
No, not at all.
Right.
Not at all.
So what do you think might have happened?
I think that there was remote planes were crashed into that building, and inside the building were set thermite, remotely controlled thermite explosives that were set there by workmen that had basically like unadulterated access to the Twin Towers for a matter of weeks, if not months beforehand, and that the planes were like a kind of a visual symbol. Going into the towers, that they were filled with not passengers but gasoline. There may have been like a missile at the bottom to kind of as a match to like the tinderbox, and a big oil explosion that would cause smoke and cause these iconic images of explode. Like if a plane crashes, doesn't explode like that. It doesn't blow up in a giant ball of fire that escapes out of the sides of the building. And if it did, there wouldn't be enough heat left in the fire to be able to melt the steel beams to make the building fall like at terminal velocity, like at the speed of
free fall speed. Yeah, there
was no resistance, just all the way down like a Las Vegas casino. I think, and when we talk about it at length in our show, World Trade Center 7 is the secret to that.
That's the smoking gun. Yeah, I think that was the command and control center to bring the towers down, and then they dropped that building to kill the evidence.
And the amount of government, how would you call it, like municipal offices that were in there, like the INS, the IRS, CIA, FBI, all of them had offices in
all the alphabet agencies.
7. A lot of them, yeah.
No, there was a guy who died in there. Wasn't there a guy who died in... There was some guy called John O'Neill who was an FBI investigator, and he was the chief investigator into Bin Laden, and apparently he had a lot of information about Bin Laden, and all that information was held in building number 7, and it was all destroyed, including O'Neill. He was killed in there as well.
I didn't hear about him, but I heard about a guy called Barry Jenkins.
Yeah, look up John O'Neill. That's his name, John O'Neill. He died in there. He was an FBI special agent. And I think he was a pretty high up agent as well. He wasn't just a run-of-the-mill street agent. He was like a top investigator, and he had the goods. The conspiracy around him goes that he knew the truth about Osama bin Laden, that he had absolutely zero to do with 9/11. Yes, he was investigating him for other offences like the USS Cole and stuff like that, but he had nothing to do with 9/11. He didn't have the capacity to carry out such an attack, and he knew it, apparently.
There's magnificent, coincidental... these events that were happening around 9/11, like massive, like grandiose symbols of collusion, where George Bush Sr. and Osama bin Laden's like billionaire uncle were having tea in a hotel in New York at the time, and you're like, what's going on? The fact that like 48 bin Laden family members were flown out on September 12th out of the country for fear of retribution. Like all of these mad details, I can't remember the guy's name now off the top of my head. He bought Larry
Silverstein, is it?
Twin Towers.
Larry Silverstein.
Barry Silverstein.
Larry Silverstein.
He bought the Twin Towers just months before and insured them for their full price. So he got a big ball of money out of the insurance.
I think he got 3 or 4 billion.
All of those things. Yeah. I mean, if you were a business operating there and you were doing some tax fiddles, the IRS or the Revenue Service in Ireland would catch you straight away. Like, they'd be like, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. This lad's buying this thing, and then a couple of weeks later, like, how much crap do you have to go through when you're claiming insurance on your car?
Yeah.
To make sure that you're not like messing. And
they put you through 40 hoops. If you try claim for your insurance, even for a windscreen over here, like you have to prove that you're telling the truth 100% and there's no shenanigans going on.
Yeah.
But Larry Silverstein,
it's bananas.
Takes the lease out in a couple of buildings, pays a couple of $100 million down, insures them for a few $1 billion, and next thing they get knocked and he claims on them.
Yeah,
there's no conspiracy there.
You can put that out there. It's not a fact. It's not something that happened, but it's an interesting thing to think about because of the motivations of the people. And again, we're back to emotional context. Like, we know there's something going on, so everyone's looking for something weird to pick on. But the facts remain that the people in the area at the time collected dust. Their apartments, because their windows were open, their apartments were full of dust. And as some people do, they go to foreign beaches and they collect boxes of sand or they collect this and that. As a souvenir, they got a bunch of this dust, and it has been tested later on, and it was found to have nanothermite inside of it.
A military grade thermite.
Military grade nanothermite. So it has this theory then that they put, the pictures of the melted, like T-1000 from the Terminator, these melted girders that could only have been melted like that with something like thermite, which is a chemical it's a chemical compound you put onto metal or a steel door or something like that when you want to get it open, and you light it and it burns at thousands of degrees, and it was more than enough to collapse those. Can
I ask you though, Gordon?
Steel pins inside the towers, and the towers just collapse like a wet cake.
Like, we know, most conspiracy theorists, people like myself and yourself who are looking at this subject, we can agree that 9/11 was the catalyst for what's going on in the world now, the war on terror and stuff like that. Okay,
everything is a catalyst for what's going on in the world now, Mick. Everything.
But if you look at 9/11,
think of how important 9/11 was, right? Think about how important the Columbine High School shooting was. Like, when you talk about how people are treated in airports now, everyone blames 9/11.
Yeah.
But think about it.
But you look at 9/11.
Shooting guys were the ones that made everybody in airports go, "Hey, did you pack this bag yourself? Has it been out of your sight at any point?" Like, those guys caused such a panic about teenagers, about young people, about young people's culture, and about gun ownership in America and bomb making in America, domestic terrorism. Like, it was the 9/11 before 9/11. It was such a huge thing, but I think it's been overshadowed since. Like, everything that's ever happened has had an effect. 9/11 has had a pretty big effect. It was other things that people forget about,
But we look at 9/11 as the catalyst that started the Afghanistan war, the Iraq war, and now on to Syria, Libya, Yemen, and any other country out in the Middle East that's getting hockeyed over by the Allies at the moment. I don't think they needed to do 9/11 as an excuse, because it was used as an excuse to go into these countries. But I mean, all they had to do, they could have done it on a smaller scale. They could have had a few bombs going off in major cities around America. That would have been enough of an excuse for the American government to say, listen, we're going to invade half the world now because we're not having any of this. They didn't need to do anything as big as 9/11.
Again, I go back to an emotional anchor, The amount of people that are affected. Like, you talk to Americans, and now maybe they're a little bit more cynical, and the people of my age will be like, meh, whatever. People in New York living at the time, like, you're talking nearly 20 years ago
It is nearly 20 years ago now, and
they're in
it's
their
becoming a
50s.
distant memory for people.
It is nearly 20.
And it is becoming a distant memory for a lot of people.
The emotion is kind of not as effective anymore.
Yeah.
But in 2001 and 3,
it was.
You know, you had people. There was memorial services on the TV where they'd spend 45 minutes reading out a bunch of people's names.
Yeah.
One after the other, and there'd be people roaring, crying, you know, and it was the emotional weight of that pushed that, support for attacking, Afghanistan. There was a re-politicization of a lot of the American people. Loads of people were joining up to the military to be all like, well, I'm not going to stand by and blah, blah, blah. And you've seen it before in World War II and the Vietnam War and the Korean War and the first, Iraq War, the first Gulf War. This was something more. And there was an anti-war sentiment with Vietnam because, there was the first time.
That's because people were seeing soldiers. People were seeing soldiers coming home from Vietnam, though, blown to bits and stuff like that, and left in wheelchairs and whatnot. Yeah. And they were of a generation who were actually sitting up and taking notice.
So, a lot of people saw America as like an imperialist force, militarily or whatever. But with 9/11, at the time, if they had went, or let's go into Afghanistan, there was enough kind of political opposition to totally shoot that idea. Be like, oh, what? Okay. Like, how much talk did there have to be about weapons before people just went, go on, whatever, go on into Iraq, go on, we don't care now anymore.
But there was massive protests around the world about Iraq, but there was plenty of information, though, or should I say, demonstrations against the war in Iraq in 2003, but they still went ahead and did it.
Minimal. It was really minimal. Like, really, not a lot of people coming out. Not as much as with Vietnam in the 60s and stuff like that. It was,
I wasn't around in the 60s.
A few liberals were coming out going. Yeah, but you watch the videos and you see the stats. Like, it's not the same. There was anti-globalization and anti-this and anti-that. They still went. There wasn't. They were still getting their votes passed. They were still getting politicians elected. And it's, over 2 different administrations. So we're talking about George Bush started the war.
And Barack Obama finished it.
And then it moved to Iraq. And then he was re-elected as the president. Like, you can't say that people, didn't want it. There wasn't an opposition. If there was an opposition, he wouldn't have got in again.
But that's assuming the American elections weren't rigged in the first place. That George Bush won a second term.
There you go with the conspiracy again.
But I don't mean in a conspiratorial sense. It would be a conspiracy anyway if it was rigged. But what I'm saying is, are the Americans that bloody stupid to let that man in for a second term? But then again, they voted for Trump, so anything is possible now.
This is the thing. That's another narrative that's not true, Mick. That American people are stupid. They're not stupid.
Oh no, I don't mean they are, but I mean they appear to us on the outside. Yeah. We look at America and we see them electing people like Donald Trump. I mean, there's 1,000,001 people in America who can do a much better job than that man is going to do, and yet he's the one that gets elected, and therefore it lends to the conspiracy theories that American presidents are not elected; they're actually selected.
That's a convenient truth,
Like, do you think so?
To say that. Absolutely, man.
Well, I don't know that that's the truth. Don't get me wrong. I don't know that American presidents are selected. Yeah. It's a theory that's out there. When you look at the way politics work, are they actually selected, these people? Are they put in positions of power by a much higher power?
Isn't it an awful lot easier to think that George Bush was a bumbling gobshite
But he was a bumbling gobshite, I mean, you can see
because he got to be the president.
Well, no, I know that. I'm sure he was probably a smart man in his own respect, but he did himself no favours in the public domain.
No, because he maybe wasn't a great public speaker, just like Donald Trump isn't a traditionally acceptable or quote unquote presidential president. That he says some stuff and he has some specific vocal kind of tics and little phrases that he uses and trains of thought that he doesn't mind you sending it into the public. But if you're talking about, Barack Obama was in between.
Yeah, he was more intellectual.
He was just a real charming dude who talked really
He could talk the talk, all right. I'll give Obama that. Listen, I want to go to one more set of ads, and then we'll turn the last 20 minutes into a couple of more weirdo conspiracies that are going on out there that I want to bend your ear about. Folks, we'll be back in 2 minutes with Gordo. Talk to you very shortly.
To Liffey Sound, www.liffeysoundfm.ie. Listen online. Community radio at its best.
Tune in every Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. for Ultrasounds on Liffey Sound 96.4 FM or www.liffeysoundfm.ie.
Have you taken our advice and explored the many attractions in our lovely Liffey Valley? There's so much to enjoy in the Liffey Valley. Lovely parks, riverside walks, historic houses, water sports, children's play areas and much, much more. The Liffey Valley Park Alliance continues its work for the preservation of this marvellous amenity and its picturesque landscapes. You can play your part by using its various facilities. If you have not already done so, start now. You won't regret it.
Danger, danger!
If sore necks, ringing in your ears and mosh pits are your thing, check out High Voltage with me, Dave Darcy, for all things rock, metal and punk. Every Monday evening from 7 to 9 on Liffey Sound 96.4 FM.
Danger, danger! High voltage! We will tell us, and we will cheer.
Local programs, local presenters, local news. Tune to Liffey Sound 96.4 FM.
Now, folks, you're very welcome back. The text number is 087 062 7138. That's 087 062 7138. You can also leave comments on the World You Don't Know page if you care to do so. And if you do go onto that page, like it and share it. That'll be great. Anyway, I'm going to go back to Gordon. Gordon, as I said, I want to turn the last 20 minutes into the more weirder conspiracies that are out there. As you well know, the world is abound with conspiracies. Everything from JFK to Paul McCartney not being who he really supposed to be, and you know, the moon land has been fake and stuff like that. But two of the more prevalent ones that are doing the rounds over the last couple of years. First one is the flat earth. What's your opinion on that? And what do you think is going on with that whole scenario of the flat earth? Do you think it's a big psyop?
That's the definition of, you know, subjective information. Do you know what I mean? People, it's gone so far that people don't want to even believe that the earth is, you know, round anymore, and they'll deny physics and they'll deny, you know, hundreds of years of evidence and use logical fallacies like, yeah, well, up until it was found out that it was round, everyone thought it was flat, and now they think it's round. It's, you know, they're only trying to tell you that.
But there's some people like Neil deGrasse Tyson. When you see Neil deGrasse Tyson going on to, I suppose what you could term serious scientific programs, say like on Discovery Channel and whatnot, or that's assuming you can take anything on those channels serious anymore. But he goes on to these supposedly serious programs, and the latest theory from him is that the Earth is not actually round, despite NASA's photographs of it being spherical. That it's an oblate spheroid and it's more pear-shaped. So why would they be wheeling him out?
Yeah, it's kind of
to say that if it's not the case.
Kind of squashed at the top and flat at the sides.
But I mean, if you look at the NASA photographs from the alleged photograph that they took from the moon or from somewhere near the moon, and when you were looking back on Earth, it's a perfect sphere. But yet that doesn't gel them with what Neil deGrasse Tyson is saying.
There's explanations for all of those. Like, it's composited to it's taken in sections. You know,
yeah, no, I know that composite images.
Yeah, like, I mean, Flat Earth is a perfect example, and I haven't done an episode on it. We will be doing it in future episodes, and I'm going to dig deep on this one because there's a lot of people that stand steadfast by it.
I mean, I had a flat earther on here last. I had one on here about a year and a half ago. A guy called Mark Sargent. Right, there's two of them out there who are the big proponents of the flat earth. There's Mark Sargent and a guy in Thailand called Eric Dubé, and an American, both Americans. And I had Mark Sargent. I had Mark Sargent on here, and I'm neither a flat earther nor a globe earther, and the reason I say that is because I've never been into space, so I haven't a clue what this planet looks like. I've only got education and the academia and NASA and whatnot to go on. Do you know what I mean? And do I believe any of them? I don't believe them, I don't disbelieve them, I don't really care because I'm not interested in that. But until I get up and have a look, I'm not accepting anybody's version of events. But
so this is the thing then, Mick, right? Like I was saying earlier on, right, the thing that I want to do on my show and the remit of our podcast is we take widely available information from the internet that is out there on both sides. we try and tell the story of it in a narrative that makes it kind of like a start to finish job, like sometimes it's chronological, sometimes it's based on character based or whatever. If we're doing something like a Kurt Cobain, we did one on the suicide / assassination of Kurt Cobain. Was it a suicide? We don't know. We did, telling the story of Joseph Fritzl, or we're telling like the death of Princess Diana, or all the things to do with Sasquatch, and then we do historical ones like Pete Goyle, or like the Vatican, like the history of the Vatican from the start to finish, right? And I try to find as many different threads to put together as vast and wide a narrative to explain why we think it is the way it is now, using what other people out there could find on the internet. And I filter it through my, previous knowledge. I filter it through, I sound like an arsehole now, but I filter it through like my intelligence and the way I think about things. Like I synthesize the information and put it out there and go, look it. If it's fact, it's fact. If it's not, it's not. But we can, have a play and have a mess around with the spurious details. If for 9/11 your man's passport flew out and it remained totally intact and landed on the ground on the street in New York, like how does that happen through a fireball that can melt a building? These kind of little things that you bring. There's analysis of, conspiracy thought forms like propaganda, or looking at, in our most recent season we looked at like huge concepts like money, like what is money, where does money come from, and then kind of drill down into the specifics of it by doing an episode on JP Morgan and how he created the Federal Reserve, which gave us the dollar, which gave us the modern banking system. And the way I'm looking at all of that stuff is you have to take it as it is. Like you say, you can't take that because you haven't gone up in the space, so you can't say one side or the other. But yet you can put out something like, are Americans stupid enough to elect Donald Trump? Totally negating the fact that like the American stock exchange is stronger than it's been in 25 years. Unemployment is at an all-time low in the African American community. Like all of these different facts that people hear, and because they don't like Trump will go, that emotionally doesn't make sense to me, so no, it's not real. Someone is telling a lie. It's, subjective non-truth. That information is not real because I don't believe it, because it doesn't fit with how I see the world. And everything has become so intersectionalized and individualized, and you wonder why people are depressed and they feel lonely and they feel isolated and separate. It's because they're creating their own realities where nothing else makes sense, only their thoughts. And when they try to communicate those things to other people, people either call them, lefty liberal cooks, or alt-right Nazis, or conspiracy theorists, or stupid people who just follow. You're a sheep. You're not woke. You're a sheep. Like if everybody had enough respect for everybody else and the information that they know and what they work on, and try to bring people who are at level 1 who are like, I've heard there's something weird about 9/11. Could you tell me anything about that? And then if somebody's going, do you not know about 9/11? Like, where have you been? Like, what do you acting in that way ends up getting people get their back up. They don't want to participate then. They don't want to communicate. They'll shut down, and they won't talk about some of the matter stuff. And this is why we have an episode coming up on David Icke now in the next few days. This is why David Icke has a 12-hour show. Because for the first 3 hours, he's just like giving you a tickle on the bum. Just like softly. Come on in here till I tell you this stuff. Did you ever hear this? Well, here. Did you ever hear this? Well, here. And then at hour 7, he's like, invisible lizard aliens are taking over our minds, and they drink the blood of children to stay immortal while they run the world from an alternate dimension. And you're going like, oh Jesus, I'm glad I stayed for the first 3 hours. Do you know? Yeah. So that truth is totally subjective when you're talking about stuff like these concept things like flat earth. The evidence can be constructed and shown. And if you want to believe it, it's totally believable. If you want to ignore the fact that the Earth is round, and vice versa, the flat Earth sounds ridiculous to someone who's a round earther. But the emotional weight that's around being a flat earther makes them so aggressive that if you doubt them, they're all like, "Oh yeah."
I've noticed that online now. You're right.
You.
I've noticed that online now with flat earthers. I've looking at some of the forums and stuff like that. You'll see anybody who challenges them, like they go after them like with great gusto. You know, they don't like anybody challenging them for some reason.
It's the pinnacle of rebellion,
Yeah.
the intellectual rebellion. This is like the world is not the way it's supposed to be.
Yes.
The way politics has gone, the way society has gone, the way we're in now this like strange intersectional, some say cultural Marxist class divide where everybody is boxed off into tinier and tinier and tinier boxes, which makes everybody super individual. And it goes for the old adage, divide and conquer. They've divided everybody so much now.
Even more so than what
like,
it was like 20 years ago. That's for definite. I have noticed that myself.
Yeah.
I'll move on from the flat earth. We've got about 6 minutes left. The last weird
I want to talk
conspiracy.
about the Open Minds Conference as well.
Please do, yeah, in a couple of minutes.
We're going to be...
That's no problem.
Yeah.
We'll spend about 2 or 3 minutes on the last subject I want to mention to you, and that's the Mandela effect. That seems to be gaining a lot of traction online. What's your opinion on that?
We did an episode on Mandela effect.
Oh,
it was
did
a live
you?
show we did on YouTube.
Right, I must have a listen to that.
And we picked out a lot of the examples from the internet and from these forums and stuff.
And was there any examples that you noticed a change with? Like, I mean, for me, one of the examples that I picked out that I latched onto actually was the A-Team van. You know, the A-Team
van?
Well, I grew up watching the A-Team, and as far as I'm concerned, that van is all black with a red stripe.
Yeah, that's what it is, yeah.
But if you go and look at it online, it's now black and grey with a red stripe. I'm just saying, you know.
It was all black.
I remember that as all black with a red stripe, yeah. That's how I remember it.
You and me are from the same universe then, Mick.
That's it, yeah. So if you look on the universe that we're in now, it's actually black and grey. The top half of the van is grey and the bottom half is black with the red stripe.
Oh,
so.
no, that's not right.
So there's someone messing with something.
But this is the thing. A lot of stuff has been said, the way I went deep into Mandela effect because it kind of tickled my brain. It was nice to think about. We went looking about CERN.
CERN, they're sort of wrapped up in all of this.
They're trying to create. Yeah, in Switzerland, they're trying to create antimatter, dark matter, whatever. And those experiments have opened up, they say, portals to an alternate dimension where they're able to shoot like protons in and out of different dimensions, and it could have had something to do with that. It could have had something to do with the world is supposed to end in 2012, and like if you were to take a snapshot of the front page of the New York Times and send it back 5 years ago, like people would say like that's some weird dystopia. It looks like Idiocracy if you've ever watched that movie.
Yeah, I did. I've watched that movie. Yeah, it's a mad film.
And I think the Mandela effect is again another coping mechanism for people that are like, this world is absolutely bananas.
Yeah,
we must be in a different dimension. And
sometimes it feels that way, doesn't it?
You know?
Sometimes it feels that way until you walk down to your local shop and realise the price of milk is going up and not much has changed. Listen, we've got about 3 or 4 minutes left, so do you want to talk about the conference?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to be speaking at the conference. I'm going to be on my own this time. Paul is not involved in the show anymore, but I'm going to be talking about fake news, these kind of emotional attachments to conspiracy theory, and my experiences with conspiracy theorists online and how they react, how they interact, and a better way to convey your message. We do it through comedy. The shows are like 5 hours, but we get nearly 1 million downloads a month.
That many?
So there's somebody listening.
That's a lot. That's enough. That's absolutely. An awful lot now. We use it on the Saturday afternoon, I think, from 1:30 until 2:45, 14:45. So you're on for a good
Saturday lunchtime.
Saturday lunchtime at 1:30.
I'm going to be bopping around for the whole weekend. I'm going to be down on Friday morning. I'm going to be doing interviews and filming and stuff like that.
Right.
I'm actually planning a trip to America from September this year until May 2019, Mick, and I'm going over. Me and my girlfriend, and I have all the camera gear, and we're going to make 12 feature-length documentaries, a daily vlog, and I'm going to be writing a book when I come back. So it's going to be a huge project, really audacious. I don't think anyone else has done
conspiracy
anything like
related stuff you're doing over there.
It's all 12 feature-length conspiracy documentaries.
Oh,
and
brilliant,
like with
brilliant.
our podcast, I'll take a broad topic like, say, gun control or economics, or I have one, it's called Apocalypse, where I go and visit the lads up in South Dakota who, you know, they're on a compound and they have guns and they don't let the police up there and they don't pay taxes and stuff like that.
Right.
So I want to go to these places, talk to these people, and because I'm here in the box room, you know, in me jocks, making a podcast most days, and it's going out to, you know, 1 million people every month, and they're listening for 5 hours. So there's something in the comedy / critical thinking market share. People want to have this information, but a lot of conspiracy theorists are all like, hey, listen, you know about the interdimensional aliens? You know, it ends up getting very
it can get
heavy
ridiculous
very
sometimes
quickly,
as well,
and people
yeah.
are like, ugh.
Can I ask you though, Gordo, before you go? I was looking at some of your
I
YouTube
just want to
videos
say
today.
about that's a crowdfunded thing, and if you wanted to get more information about that, if you wanted to donate and help a brother out, we're at gofundme.com/TCGTV. All the information and the itinerary and all that stuff is there, and you can have a look at that. And open minds, I'd be willing to talk to anybody about that as well, because it's a nice group of people, and they're all on that buzz where they just want to explore.
Yeah, it's a great buzz.
You know, talk about it without shouting in your face.
Yeah,
you know?
I was down there last year now, and I did have the pleasure of meeting your good self down there last year, and I have to say it was a fabulous weekend. We had a great crack down there the weekend, especially at night after everything was quieting down and we were in the bar having a few scoops and whatnot, and the crack was 90 now. I have to say it was a really brilliant weekend. But I want to ask you just before you do go, I was looking at I do an hourly show once a week, and I've been doing it for the last 7 years, and I get sometimes when I'm talking for an hour, I sometimes run out of steam, and you know I'll play a couple of songs just to kill a couple of minutes. How do you do a 4 and 5 hour show? How do you do it?
We started off doing about a 2 hour show, and it wasn't a thing. I wanted to do more, but I didn't think that anyone would want to listen to it. And then the show length started creeping up, and we were doing bigger episodes like H.P. Lovecraft and the Necronomicon, and we were doing Sasquatch, and we were doing all of these much larger shows that were huge concepts. You know, I did one about Jim Jones and the Jonestown Massacre. We did one about time travel. We did one about the simulation theory, where the world is actually a computer generated.
Yeah, I had a guy on about that as well.
It, you know?
I had a guy called Dr. Richard Terrell. He works for JPL.
Oh, yeah.
I had him on my show there last year, talking about that very subject, the simulation theory. That's something that really does interest me. It's a strange subject, yeah.
But our show started creeping up. Some of them are like 7.5 hours long. I changed over my podcast host to Spreaker.com about a year ago, and they have a 300 megabyte upload limit, so we can't go over 5 hours now for the shows. But there were like, some of them are 6 and 7 and 8 hours long, and people listen. The people in America, they work in an office. They put the headphone in and they just crunch the numbers.
But that's the great thing. That's the great thing about your show as well.
Jokes and talking about conspiracy theories.
That's the great thing about these kind of shows, though. You can stick them on your iPod or stick them on your phone and just listen to them at your leisure. You know, you don't have to sit and listen for the whole 7 hours in one go. Well, listen, Gordo, I haven't run out of time, unfortunately. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I've had a blast for the last hour now, I have to say.
Thanks, Mick.
You're more than welcome. And listen, I look forward to seeing you down at Waterford in Dooley's Hotel at the end of the month. I'm not sure what day I'm going to get down, because I have some family commitments around that weekend as well. But I'm going to do my best to get down for at least 2 other days. Well, I will see you down there at some stage.
It's on from the 2nd to the 4th of March, and you can get tickets at openmindsconference.com.
And they're available on Eventbrite as well, and Dooley's Hotel is a great location for something like this. Well, listen, Gordo, thanks very much for coming on, and I shall talk to you very soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, boss. Cheers.
No problem. Talk to you again soon. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that was Gordo from Those Conspiracy Guys. As you just heard him mention there, he's going to be presenting at the Open Minds Conference on the 2nd, 3rd and 4th of March. He'll be on the 3rd, which is the Saturday afternoon from 1:30 till 2:45. You don't usually run over a couple of minutes here either side, but it'll be a brilliant weekend. And if you want to go to that, you can check out the openmindsconference.com website, and you can get tickets through that website, I'd imagine. And there's some absolutely fantastic speakers. You've got Alan and Steve from OIM, you've got Aisling Fitzgibbon, The Girl Against Fluoride, the movie Wild Atlantic Way, directed by Nigel Sullivan's going to be getting played, and Those Conspiracy Guys, Gordo will be down there, John Wilson, Garda Whistleblower, telling his story, Tom Ryan talking about sovereignty and the truth about the human mind, Max Egan, previous guest on the show. He's going to be there, and there's going to be absolutely some fantastic guests. Mark Devlin's going to be there. He's been on a show recently. Cian Foley, Anthea Fenton. And it's going to end the actual whole conference with a 15-minute meditation session with John Payne. Now, we've done that, and trust me, folks, it works. John is great at the old meditation. Anyway, folks, this has been The World You Don't Know. I have come to the end of the show, unfortunately, and I suppose I have to end the show, so that's what I will do. Until next week, folks, remember, the world is full of great people, and if you can't find one, be one. Talk to you all very soon.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, the secret oath, and the secret proceedings.
Breaking humanity, one soul at a time. This is The World You Don't Know radio show with your host, Nick O'Connell.